Welcome to Lifting the Line, a construction contracting podcast.
Hey, we're here, Lifting the Line, a building and construction podcast. I'm Elly. I'm here with Andy, my co-host, and today we have a special guest, Keith Fagg. So, Keith, thanks so much for coming in today.
Pleasure.
Yeah. We are open with whatever comes up in conversation today, but start off with telling us a little bit about Geelong, because Geelong's where you live. Were you born in Geelong?
Yeah, born and bred in Geelong.
Yeah.
Apart from 3 years of my life, I lived here, basically. I worked in Melbourne for a number of years during that time, but otherwise I was born and bred in Geelong, and I consider myself a Geelong person, well and truly, yeah.
I'm a Geelong person too, but how long do you have to live in Geelong to be a Geelong person?
Well, people say, you have to be have the grandmother buried in it, but I hope that's not the case. I hope Geelong's a much more welcoming community than that. For that. But I'm a fourth generation Geelong person. My great grandfather and his brother arrived in Geelong in 1852.
Yeah, right.
And went from there from the goldfields. And I'm fourth generation. Normally in that sort of time period, 170 plus years, you'd have maybe 6 or maybe 7 generations. Well, our forebears were very slow to marry. Married quite late. So I'm only fourth generation. I'm turning 70 this year, so that shows you.
So marry late, have children late.
That's right, the whole thing, yeah. So, born in Geelong and studied in Geelong, university in Melbourne, of course, because there wasn't universities in Geelong at that time, and then back into business and life after that.
So your involvement in the community is still strong, isn't it? Even though, because you were in the you've been in business with Mitre 10.
Yes.
And you're not in that at the moment, but are you still part of it?
Still connected, yeah. So a bit of a quick background about the business. As I said, my great-grandfather and brother arrived in Geelong in 1852, and having no success on the goldfields, they decided to go into business. And interestingly, one of the two brothers was a builder. Mm-hmm. He was a builder, or carpenter builder, and his other brother, who was my great-grandfather, was a clerk or business person. Basically, that's what they were described as on the immigration manifest. And so they saw the opportunity to actually sell building materials and things to people in the goldfields rather than actually try to do it themselves. So they established business in Pakenham Street in Geelong in 1854, and went from there. They started off actually building houses as well as selling building materials, but then the business over the generations has morphed into more of a timber business initially, with a big joinery shop and timber milling operation with Oregon, etc. And then in 1965 went into the Mitre 10 hardware group. We were selling hardware and building materials for some time before that, but the Mitre 10 group, which was established about 8 or 9 years before that, as a member-owned cooperative, we were the first store outside of Melbourne to join Mitre 10. And Mitre 10, while it was established in Victoria, went nationwide, and certainly is that the case today. And the business has continued through that with both the hardware and the building materials focus, but in more recent years, particularly with the changing marketplace and Bunnings entering with massive warehouse stores, and they're very powerful retailers, our business is beginning to focus. We've always been a trade business, but I guess our focus is more on the trade side and building materials and timber, etc., than it has been in perhaps in recent years.
Yeah, because I hadn't really thought about that. Yeah, Bunnings has really been an impact and really taken over the market in a lot of ways.
Oh, absolutely, it has. Bunnings has changed the face of hardware retailing in Australia. It was built on the Home Depot model from the United States. We believe the executives from Bunnings at the time went across and spent 6 months just watching what the Home Depot people were doing. And basically, when it first started, it was a direct copy of the Home Depot stores in America, which are large warehouse, box-style retailers. And they are very successful, very powerful retailers. So we've in our industry, there's been a massive rationalisation, if you like. Basically, the smaller stores have been cleaned out. The smaller hardware, paint stores, even garden stores, nurseries they've largely gone. You either have to get out or get big, right? And in our family business, we've been able to invest in our business to expand to the larger stores, largely. We now have 4 stores in Geelong, and we also operate 4 Mitre 10 stores in Ballarat as well. Sorry, right. 3 in Ballarat, 1 in Bacchus Marsh, under what's called the Faggs Group.
That the Faggs Group had moved into the Ballarat area as well.
Yes.
Because that was another family that had those stores.
It was a Copman family before that, and also with Copman and also another business called GJ and Sons, and one was in the Home Hardware Group back then, and one was in the Mitre 10 Group,
right.
And then the Mitre 10 stores bought the GA business out. Mitre 10 Australia has changed over the years. It's now owned by Metcash. As I said, Mitre 10 was a member-owned cooperative before. Now Metcash, which is a public listed company, which also operates the IGA supermarkets and Campbell's Cash and Carry, they bought the brand a number of years ago, and they now run the business. They run the warehouses that we draw our stock from, and Metcash now has the brands of Home Hardware, Mitre 10, and a couple of other brands as well. So those brands, all the if you like non-Bunnings hardware brands, are essentially run by Metcash or coordinated by Metcash with a mix of both member-owned stores and family-owned or individually owned stores.
Yeah. It's funny. Running my bricklaying business both in Geelong and Ballarat. So I was in Ballarat for about 10 years, and then Geelong for 10 years, and then back to Ballarat for about 10 years, and then back to Geelong. But so just moving over those areas, I used to hate going to the Bunnings stores because I couldn't find anything, and I didn't know anyone. So I always loved going in. So I'd always love going into either Mitre 10 or Belmont Timber, which is all part of the group, isn't it?
It is.
And and so the people knew your name, and you could get good service, and you knew where things were. You go into Bunnings, and you couldn't find anything, and it was just used to do me head in.
Well, we respect them as retailers, and they have major, huge stock, as you know, but finding what you need is often a bit of a challenge. Our business over the years has been based on relationships. It's certainly the trade business, and to a large extent the retail business as well. And that's why we're focusing on that, because we see that as our strength, right? We understand the trade. We have a lot of tradespeople who work for us, or ex-tradespeople who work for us, and we can also deliver. Right, we can deliver pretty quickly when required. I mean, the industry, certainly 2 or 3 years ago during the COVID issues, time was very, very busy, and the supply became very tight. Timber, as you might be aware.
I do remember that, yes.
And the prices went haywire, and that wasn't just us. I mean, there was a wholesale price went up as well. But we can deliver and understand, I guess, what the trade needs a bit more than perhaps our competitors do. I'm not going to take anything away from Bunnings. They're very, very, very powerful competitors, and businesses like ours have to work to sort of find the niche that we're in and do it well, and also have not rely upon 1 or 2 really big builders, and then if that something happens to them, then something might impact on the business. Our business has a lot of smaller builders. We have a few of the larger builders, the volume builders, but mainly a lot of smaller builders who might do 4 to 10 houses a year, or a lot of renovations and that sort of thing. Many of those tradespeople, we value their business, because they at the front line, they're in our stores every day getting different things they might need, as you wouldn't know from your bricklaying experience.
Absolutely. Do you know, it's funny you say that about not committing yourself to 1 or 2 big builders. I remember many years ago, so my dad was in the building industry as well. He was a builder, and when I started my business, Dad sort of retired, and I took over his account.
Okay, right.
At Gaze in Ballarat. And I remember going in one day. Cash flow was really tight. I was stuck for money. I was waiting on money coming in, and I went in and saw Jim and said, "I'm really struggling this month to be able to pay you, but it's coming. But I wanted to come and let you know." And I remember him saying to me, he goes, "Andy, I'm not worried about the 10 grand you owe me at the moment. It's the 200 that the other builder owes me that's not talking to me."
Okay, yes.
And I went, actually, communicating with your suppliers when you are tight. They understand they run a business too.
Yep.
But yeah, you've got to keep those lines of communication open. But I really remember him saying, he really valued the small customers that had been long-term customers like that.
It goes back to the basis of relationships, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And sort of we talk in our business about, and it's relevant to a building industry, we talk about a loyalty ladder, right? Where you start with sort of if you're thinking about going up a ladder, right? It's about people who are prospect, people who are thinking you might be doing a job with you or something, right? Then you talk about a customer who sort of might do 1 or 2 jobs a year for them, right? Then you go up the ladder further and you talk about a friend, someone actually who is a friend of the business, maybe not a personal friend, or it could be, but a friend who actually sort of, really appreciates what you do, respects your quality and might do a lot of work with you, get you on regular jobs. And then we go to the top and talk about either advocates or evangelists, right? And they're people who will actually, on their own volition, sing your praises as a tradesman or a business person because of the fact that they really enjoy what you do and understand what you do. And we in our business, and a business like Jim Gay's business as well, and Jim was an icon in the industry, is all about trying to take people up that ladder and establish a relationship with friends, people. And you'll know with our business friends, you'll know their first name, you'll know their son's name or daughter's name, you'll know a bit about the footy team they parry for, maybe, but understand that and respect them as friends of the business, if you like. And at those times and those relationships can be really important when maybe times are tough. I mean, in that situation you just described, you did absolutely the right thing, rather than getting 10 phone calls from the accounts receivable person saying, where's the money or can you pay us, please? You tell them up front there's an issue, we'll pay when you can. That's all they need to know. As you say, they understand business, but it's where those lines of communication stop or they have some difficulty, there's barriers, then you begin to worry.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you seen a change in that over the years, or has that only got stronger?
Well, you mean the relationship-based?
Yeah.
I think it's stronger now. I think for the customer, we work pretty closely with our trade clients and keep them close as much as we can. I mean, it's competitive out there. We always say we're only as good as the last job we do for them or the last client we serve because we want to do it well. We don't want to rely. We don't want to assume anything, right? And or assume their loyalty, right? And just we want to make sure we're competitive, we've got the quality, we can offer a package. And because we're focusing more on the trade, I guess, we appreciate our retail customers. The retail store is still very important to us. That relationship is important. We have tradie golf days now, a couple of the year, once in Geelong, one in Ballarat. We even have a tradie surfing day down at Torquay. Yeah, for that Torquay Mitre 10 store. Not that I can surf, but they have a good day apparently because after tradies down in Torquay way, Jan Jack way, they all spend enjoy the surf and why not? So we have a surfing day. And other trade breakfasts and functions. We've also connected with a couple of organisations which are focusing on tradie mental health. Yeah. And one's called Helping Hand, I think. And that's another thing we do. We have a breakfast, might have 30, 40 people there and just have people there just really low key, but just to sort of, it's along the lines of Are You OK Day, but it's because, at different times, particularly when business worries weigh on tradies, particularly and people who are running a trade business, then and often they feel they're operating alone, and they might not have a good support network of people they can actually talk to that know it's okay. They might feel they're alone. They might feel they're the only ones going through that difficulty, whereas the reality is there might be 2 or 3 others who can share their experiences and offer support, and it's going to be okay,
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a big advocate for like the mental health side of things within the trade group, within Bricky's network. We have an EAP that all of our members and their staff can call if they're struggling with something. But I actually had one of our bricklaying members in Melbourne call me the other day. He goes, I just love that we talk to each other. And he'll have a phone call on the way to work with 2 or 3 other different members.
Yeah, sure.
That they've been connected with just through the network to say, it's really good. We can just have a little vent. We could talk about the problems of being a business owner because sometimes it does feel very isolating.
Yeah, and their issues are probably about the business, not so much probably about the actual physical trade they're doing, but actually the business issues around, payroll, superannuation, taxation, everything like that.
Yeah,
and planning for the future.
Staff, all of those other things. They're just
Yeah. So that's I think that network's very, very important, and largely I don't know how it works, perhaps more in bricklaying, but in the timber industry, sort of the smaller renovators and builders generally aren't competing directly with each other. I mean, the people might get 2 or 3 quotes maybe, but they're generally sort of a diverse range. They're not going to be directly competing. So it's not as if they're revealing any trade secrets or anything like that. It's more about the personal interaction and support.
No, exactly right. There is that thought about competitiveness in bricklaying. They very much see everyone else as a competitor because we all work for builders and developers as bricklayers. That's pretty much who we work for. So we're sort of all fighting over the same pool of work. So if it's really busy, everyone's just flat out. But if it's quiet, then you feel like so a lot of the times they don't talk to each other because they're worried that they might let something slip that gives the other person a competitive advantage over them. But that's actually, I've never found that's actually a reality.
Okay.
That's actually a reality. It doesn't actually really exist. Yeah. You'd be better off talking to each other about what's going on just so you've got an understanding of what everyone else is dealing with. And you can also go, I've had this issue on my job. I've had to adjust my pricing because I've had to pay my boys a bit more because of this. Or this is taking us longer to do because jobs are different now. So we can't just lock in for that per 1,000 rate or per brick rate that we used to work for because our productivity's dropped because of these reasons. And if they actually communicate about that, they go, actually, you're right. I thought I was just tight in the pocket and I didn't have as much money as I used to. But you're right. I've been bleeding a little bit there and a little bit there. But they never really realise that because someone else hasn't really highlighted it to them. Just a different perspective.
And it comes back to running a business, isn't it? The business side of it rather than the classic, working where possible, working on the business. As opposed to in the business. And but I guess a lot of brickies in particular, right, and tradies as well, general tradies would have to do both a lot. Have to working in and actually physically doing the work, but also where possible step back and have a look at the business and from a broader perspective and see what they're doing, see how the cash flow is going, see how what the future might hold and where they can go, where they can take the business, So I get it.
Yeah, exactly right. And I know that nearly all tradies, especially if you're an on-the-tools tradie that's running a small business, you're very much focused on getting the job done, actually doing the work on site. But that's almost 95% removed from actually what you need to think about as the business owner.
Yes. Right.
And we're never really taught any of that at trade school. So I know we focus a lot on that when we're working with our members, but that's another thing altogether.
Yeah. In our business, we used to talk to our staff about time management a bit. And, focusing on the things that are important. And we used to have a little grid and one axis is important and one axis is urgent. So not important, important, not urgent, urgent, right? And the things we tend to do as human beings is respond to the not important but urgent things, right? But the challenges in a business generally, in any business, is to focus on the important, non-urgent things. Right. So the important things are about strategy and about business planning and that sort of thing, but it's not urgent. It can be done, in the future. The urgent things might be the bricks haven't arrived or there's the truck's broken down or something, and we have to deal with those. If it's important and urgent, certainly deal with it straight away. But if it's not, if we spend too much time on the not important, not urgent things, then we're distracting our time from the important, non-urgent things, which are actually about the bigger picture, if you like, right?
Yeah.
And what could be about just doing the books or, paying the bills or whatever, but those important, non-urgent things are the things that actually make the difference with any business, not just ours, but any business, whether it's trade or otherwise.
Yeah, absolutely. With hardware supply and timber supply, What are the massive changes you've seen in the industry over the last 50 years? Because that has changed dramatically.
It has. And it's probably similar to what's happened in the retail business in terms of the reduction in the number of retailers out there, right? Same thing has happened with supply. The number of the suppliers have progressively been bought out by larger groups or suppliers, and there's fewer of them, if you like. When I first started working in our business full-time in 1984, there was every second day you'd have reps coming to see you from different companies trying to sell things, that sort of thing. And it was the sales rep was a thing, They don't have their own network of people going around, and that doesn't happen anymore because there's very much fewer but larger suppliers, so it's consolidating, right? Also, of course, and this is not typical just to the hardware, but the suppliers are now, a lot of supply is coming from overseas, mostly Asia or the subcontinent. So that's the change from Australian manufactured to overseas manufactured goods is common in every industry, basically. And the same with timber suppliers as well. A lot of the smaller mills and things we used to buy from, they've gone now or been consolidated. There's 2 or 3 large mills now for pine, doing pine and shredded pine, etc. So there's fewer places to go in a sense, right?
Yep.
And it came home to roost, particularly in the timber industry, came home to roost during that really busy COVID time where the supply just dried up. There was so much going on that the prices went up for timber, particularly framing timber. Yeah. And we just couldn't get it anywhere to reach a price where we're getting pine in from America at one stage. Not us directly, but our wholesalers, the ones we buy from. So that's now turned around. Right now, as you might be aware, the industry's quite flat at the moment. The home building industry is quite flat.
It is. Yeah.
And the suppliers have got sacks of timber in their yards waiting to go out. But in answer to your question, there's been a consolidation of supply. Both timber and hardware suppliers in that time, just as there has been a consolidation or rationalisation in the actual retail end of it.
Yeah. What about product-wise though? From an outsider, a little bit being involved in the construction industry, it just seems like there's so many more different products that you can get. Like once upon a time, we went to the hardware store. There was a few different types of timber. Yeah. There was either Oregon or pine or hardwood. But now there just seems to be all of these different products and even products to put on the wall.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Certainly the cladding industry has gone crazy with not crazy, but the range is much bigger and. The lightweight construction, particularly the second story, it used to be the weatherboard, but now it's all a lot of hardy, the Linear and the other brands and the other.
Is there
types.
a fight to be bespoke as well, like have something unique or? I don't know, like something that nobody else has.
Well, certainly from a client point of view, I think people like to have that, whether or not, and you can use those products and then modify them in a way or present them in a way or add elements in some timber elements. So I think people want to – it depends what level of design they want to put into their homes. The volume builders certainly have their own, formula and it's based on pricing and costing.
I think we're keen to hear how you've merged out of being involved in the daily business of the Mitre 10 and what sort of things you've been involved in since, because I know you've started to use a lot of your building knowledge, haven't you, into some of this investment in property and building and development.
Okay. Yeah. So just by way of quick background, as I said, Metcash owns the Mitre 10 brand now, and they are keen to also secure their store network. So it's a long story, but basically Metcash came to us and said, we'd like to buy your business to make sure it maintains the Mitre 10 business. And my brother Barry and I, who owned the business at the time, had to make a call about what the future might be, whether we keep it for the next generation. And it's my three. I've got 3 children. Barry hasn't got anybody who would be able to take the business on, and none of my 3 children were particularly interested, even though they worked in the business over the years as casuals and students and things. They didn't have the passion for us that perhaps my brother and I did. So we had to make a call. on succession, our succession plan was that there wasn't one really in terms of the business. So when Matt Cash came and said, "Well, we can take on by the business, not the property, but the business," we took the opportunity to do that, but remained. We both, my brother Barry and I, are both on the board of the business, and very much could have connected at that level. And Barry is the chairman of the board, so we're still connected with the business that way, but in a different way. When I was actually mayor, I met the new CEO of the NDIS, and the NDIS was just commencing in 2013. And I met him, and we did a number of things together. One was we advocated in the city to have the NDIS head office in Geelong as opposed to Newcastle, and we had to advocate for that, and we were successful, which has been a big thing for Geelong, because it would have either gone to Canberra or to Newcastle if we hadn't actually proactively advocated for that. So that was a small win for Geelong. And he said to me, there are too many young people living in nursing homes. Now, young people is determined is defined anybody under 65, right? But people who had a physical disability but actually weren't aged or weren't, but they're living with old people and they need to get into a purpose-built homes. And there's a lot of also people with a disability living in public housing, which was substandard, didn't meet their needs, didn't meet their future needs. So that stuck in the back of my mind. And a few years later, when an opportunity for property came up, I thought, well, perhaps we can do something. I can do something with this property as a guide. The NDIS wasn't going to build their own properties. They wanted the market, if you like, to respond. And they have a thing called the Specialist Disability Allowance, Accommodation Allowance, which basically is designed to calculate to sort of offset or not the construction costs of new builds to new build housing or apartments or units, so that there's an incentivizes the developer, owner, whatever, to build these units. And so I started off with three, renovating an old set of flats, classic 60s brick veneer flats, right? We kept the concrete slab, the brick walls, and that's all. We re-roofed the whole thing, new frame, new everything, and converted these 6 small bed sits into 3 two-bedroom units, which was but all designed with disability principles in mind, as we discussed. And it all went from there, and I sold 2 of them to people who actually had the disability but wanted to also have equity in their own home and had a sense of ownership, which all people want to have where possible.
Of course.
So from that, my aim was to perhaps to turn these units over to build more, so I could do the same thing. So over the last 8 or 9 years, I've built probably 20 units and residences, a combination of houses and units in Geelong. Just finishing a project in Camperdown as we speak, and one to come in Colac next year. And these are all about purpose-built homes for people with the appropriate funding in their package, in their NDIS package plan, to enable them to live in a proper house. Most of the people who have moved into the properties that we've built have been living either in substandard accommodation, or they are the adult children of parents, where they'll be living with their parents, but the parents are getting worried about what will happen to them
when they're
aging, when they either if they themselves become sick or disabled, or actually want to
who's caring for who here and who's supporting who here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And also to travel as well, and just, I guess, be able to, because these parents are just amazing people. They've devoted often their whole life to their disabled child, if you like, who's now an adult. In one case, I had a guy who was in his early 80s, still lived. His son was late 40s. It was quite a small man, but as a man, he was still lifting him out of his wheelchair into bed in his early 80s, and that wasn't sustainable. So he now lives in one of my units and very, very happily doing so. In another case, there was 2 young men who had an intellectual disability, not physical but intellectual, who knew each other very well because they went to common programs together, and their parents were sort of not in their probably late 50s, early 60s, and really wanted to sort of do a bit of travel and sort of get out a bit more than than they had in the past because they were focusing on looking after their sons, their adult sons. And so they said, approached me and said, "Oh, we'd like to live together. Could you build something for us that will work?" And so we did that, and they now live and have been living for the last couple of years in a property in Armstrong Creek. One's got a huge train set in the garage, and that's his happy spot. Another guy the other one's got about 1,000 DVDs. Loves watching those. But they also go out and do day programs together, and they're as happy as Larry. It's a really lovely outcome for these two young men. They're probably in their mid to late 20s. And their parents are also happy as Larry because they've actually been able to travel. In fact, one of the parents travelled overseas to Europe for the first time ever this year because they felt comfortable enough to and often the moving in is really pretty stressful, a bit of a change. And sometimes for parents it's a change for them. For some parents, they know they need to sort of move on and let their child move on and be more independent, but they often struggle with that too because for many of them, they've built their life around their disabled child because it's the right thing to do. They love them and they want to look after them. So there's a lot of family dynamics going on with all this. So that's how I got into it. And now we build from scratch, right? Always brick or a combination of brick and, depending on the style of house and also the estate where it is and all the design guidelines. You know all about that, what they want to achieve. One place I built in Armstrong Creek in the Herod Estate, I wanted to just put a single garage because typically we don't need the carers park in the street generally or on the driveway, but the garage is a useful space. But we had to build a double garage because that was the design guideline, even though we actually, if we had already had a single garage, we could have had a lot more space for the residents inside. Yeah. So anyway, they're one of the things you have to deal with. But there's a lot of. I think over the last 7 or 8 years, I've had a lot of bricks put down. So I hope a lot of your members have been part of that.
That's good.
You started off with knowing what the guidelines were for SDA housing.
Yep.
But now working with the client too, do you find you're working more specific with the client and their needs, or are you building from scratch to support somebody who you may come across needs it?
Great question, Elly, and that's exactly where we are now. In the very early days of the SDA world, if you like, many builders, including myself, would sort of build it and thinking we'll find someone, for a few years that was the case because there's a huge pent-up demand for housing, but I'd say the last 4 to 5, 6 years, I've only built properties where I've known I've got a pretty strong, candidate for the house, and we start with them. We start with them making the approach and say, well, where would you like to live? Firstly, what does your funding level allow you to have? Aside from all the specific SDA guidelines, there's a full set of criteria.
I read the other day, it's full on, isn't it?
It is full on. There's 4 different categories, and there's probably too much detail now, but each category has a full set of details, right up to the width of door, corridors and all sorts of things, including you even have to make sure skirting is, it's skirt to skirt,
certain heights, all sorts of things. Yeah.
So aside from all that, we talk to the people about what sort of style of thing they're looking for, what they might like to have, and then get them involved in the plan. So that talk to them about the plan we develop as a consequence of that. Does that work? We talk to their OTs and family members if the person themselves can't clearly articulate what they're after. And when we finalise on that plan, then we get them involved in the colour selection and what's on the walls, what's on the floors, in a sense, how it looks, both externally and internally where we can. And that people love doing that. They come into the builder's office and they have a colour selection centre, there, and they can go to the tiles, choose the type of sink they want, the taps within, because there are certain types of taps you need to have for accessibility, etc. And I think they really appreciate that opportunity to make it their own because essentially it will become their home, hopefully for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because an SDA guideline doesn't necessarily take into account what's personal for that person and their experience with their disability, let alone what their taste and style is in a house as well. Because obviously aesthetics is really important to me.
If
I'm going to live there and enjoy where I'm living, I want it to be what I like.
Absolutely.
But I mean, I suppose some of that SDA guidelines too, it's to the extent of as far as some of the disabilities that people experience. And yet there's so many variations that really it's not necessary for everybody with a disability to have, all those extra facilities in a bathroom for, let's say, like.
That's right, and they might not use them.
No.
The guidelines, as I said, there's 4 categories, and they're more the physical aspects of the house, basically.
I can imagine for someone with a disability, that must be extremely frustrating to see 4 categories and go, but I've got something in that and then something in that one.
You're right too. The people with a mixture of things that might, and that's why we've actually built a couple of properties where there's been a crossover when we've put sort of heavy duty, much of the heavy duty plus, on the walls, which is not required for all places, but some, just because to protect the walls, some wheelchair, that sort of thing. But it's the guidelines, if you like, it becomes the base of what you'd have to build, and it's because you need to enrol the property with the NDIS that they have to.
It has to meet their
classifications. The design has to be signed off initially, and then when it's finally built and everything's finished, then an accredited assessor then goes through, and you work with them all the way through because you don't want to have problems like at the end of the job and find out that there's 3 PowerPoints in the wrong spot or something. So you work with them along the way, and the person I work with is very, very good that way. And then they sign off on the final certificate. But largely, the homes look like a normal home, both externally and internally, largely. There's very few concessions. Maybe the bathrooms are probably the most visual thing that is different, particularly with a high physical support one. But then we want them to be able to personalise the house as much as possible. Yeah, we've done feature walls often, for bedrooms. In fact, those 2 young men I was talking to, one's got a bright blue feature wall, one's got a bright green feature wall, and that was their own choice, And another aspect of high physical support housing within the SDA world is you have to have a battery, uninterruptible power supply, a UPS, uninterruptible power supply, in the event that the power goes off and someone needs life support equipment or the door, the front door has to be able to open in the event of a fire and that sort of thing. So I've got a lot of money invested in batteries, but actually no one actually needs them. Well, because I don't have life support.
Oh yeah, rightio. So you've got some of the clients who need voice control.
Yeah,
I can't. Yeah, if their power supply is connected to that. Then they're stuck.
Well, it's all to do with what's needed for their daily life,
That's right.
And in some cases where I've got one place where there's a road accident victim living there, and his needs are quite significant, and so that UPS is very, very important. Has an airbed, so those the air moves up and down. Kids stop having bed sores because they're in bed a lot.
Because it kind of moves them so that they don't stay in their one place. Yeah, that's right.
At and the way it works, just with some of the technology, et cetera, is that the NDIS will also pay the client or pay their participant if they need certain what's called assistive technology to actually, but that's paid above and beyond. Because we could put a whole lot of things.
So the installation places happens afterwards with someone.
Yeah. Sometimes if we know it's coming, well, for instance, the doorway with this person who's the TAC client need to be automated.
Yes.
So they put an automatic door in, but that happened during the course of build, but we didn't pay for it.
Yeah.
It was paid for by the TAC.
Like some people might deteriorate and have other needs. So I understand,
and that's the other thing. The good thing is that, particularly with the fully accessible and high physical support homes, they basically enable people to age in place a lot longer, stay in the home a lot longer than they otherwise would before they might need high-level care, But hopefully, they'll be in their homes for a long time. And that's and settle and hopefully and we say even though they're essentially leased homes, put things on the walls, make it personalised and make it your own. Don't worry about not putting nails in wall, hooks in walls and things.
They don't have to think about the owner of the building or get something from the agent to give approval for something.
It's their house. But that's the way I approach it. Some other developers or owners might have a different approach, but my idea is make it personalised for them.
So it strikes me the correlation or the connecting theme that you had pretty much in your upbringing in the business with Mitre 10 and the relationship that you've carried on that value of relationship now into, so really that's that connecting thread, isn't it?
Oh, well, I think
I'm hearing that.
That's what I'm hearing too.
Yeah, relationship and people being important.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I think it's the right thing, human nature to do. You need to treat everybody with respect, not judge anybody, understand they come from all sorts of different situations and difficulties in their life stories can be quite difficult or diverse, and be as being as positive as have the right attitude really towards others and towards life. In our training of our staff way back, we developed a list of things. We sort of modified list I found on the internet years and years ago, and the list of one was on one side was amateur. And one side was professional, right? And it listed the traits of an amateur and a professional. And an amateur would be someone who talks a lot. Professional is someone who listens, right? And the one I love is an amateur is a person who's an energy vampire, right? Someone who sucks the energy out of the room, and we all perhaps know people like that. On the other hand, the professional is always positive and enthusiastic and trying to find a solution, And another trait of an amateur is someone who perhaps keeps things to themselves, whereas a professional is someone who actually trains others and teaches others and sees value in that. So, my parents were great people. They both passed away now, but they were very, warm, friendly. Not perfect, none of us absolutely, but they led their lives by Christian values, and I try to do the same thing if I can, and much as possible, and as I should treat people equally and try to do the right thing.
Yeah, I think in preparation for today, I was talking about you, Keith, and just saying how much I can see that what motivates you and drives you is, yes, community, but it's the people. That you value people and you want to put your energy and time into people. And, so, and I understand the upbringing of Christian values as well. So, I think when you're raised to think of others, really. I mean, it's as simple as it comes, really. Well,
you think that's what people should be. I'm also in Rotary as well. I'm
in Geelong. Touch on that,
Canadian Rotary Club, have been for 33 years, and that's Rotary's philosophy is service above self. Right, well, you've got to. You obviously got to look after your family first, then your business or occupation, and then Rotary comes third in the sense of. And Rotary does a lot of things both locally in communities and also internationally. And Rotary's got 1.3 million members around the world, and it's a non-religious, non-political organisation. It's all about trying to serve the community and have a bit of fun along the way. And a lot of Rotarians I know who are also involved in the community activities in Geelong and other places.
Yeah, you were talking before about having support and being part of groups.
Yes.
And, in business, yes, it might be networks, but like in community, it might be, Andy, you love your bowls, right?
I do. I love my lawn bowls.
Oh, very good. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. And I love that you're part of bowls too. I love hearing about it, but it means you can go anywhere in Australia and you're part of that community.
Oh, it is, and it is a small community. You get going around Australia. I reckon I could probably travel Australia, going to bowls clubs. You'll always find somewhere to stay. You'll always find somewhere to eat. And you always find really good people.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think it's easy in life to get bogged down and busy and to just stop connecting outside of maybe your core family and your business. But yeah, having the connection and support of others is super.
If that can happen, that helps round off your life. But means you have a sort of a wide life rather than a narrow life, if you like. But again, everybody's situation is different, and some people find difficulty coping with the world more so than others. But where you do have that wider network, it's certainly it gives you, I guess, a width, a breadth, and a depth to your life and an enjoyment that sort of. It comes from Rotary is a bit like that. You can go anywhere in the world in Rotary and go to a Rotary club and find people, like-minded people, basically.
Yeah.
They mightn't speak your language, but just
I feel that's been a little bit lost in the last. I reckon probably the last 15 or 20 years. I find that a lot of dealing with small business owners. I know when my dad was a part of Rotary. I haven't been part of Rotary, been part of Lions for a little while.
Okay.
Not anymore, but. Yeah, they were all about being part of a community group and giving back. I speak to a lot of small business owners now, and I go, "So, what organisations are you involved in?" That nothing. It's go to work and they look after their family. They may have something to do with a local sport club, maybe, but generally they're just a parent or something at the club.
Yeah.
And I think that whole Christian upbringing, very much you're involved in a community. And having that regular event where you actually connected, it's really important, whether it's church, Rotary, or whatever it might be.
What has taken off, and I suppose we don't have to get all on this, but like what has taken off is the run for a cause or the ride for a cause. So I think there's a lot of like generosity out there, and people are wanting to do things like the push-up challenges and the, Movember, and there's all of that sort of stuff. I think there's a new trend of all that sort of stuff that's very considerate of community and people in need and so on and so forth. So, maybe it's just that new trend of like it's not as much in person like the Rotary and the Lions would meet fairly regularly.
Once a week.
That's right.
We do. Yeah,
and
that's right.
Plan and, quite often it's about the planning and the projects and delivering and meeting, and all those things. But so there's definitely a change in that. And I'm seeing my kids be more involved in those sorts of things.
That's good. It's all about connectedness, isn't it?
I think so.
At the end of the day.
Yeah.
And keeping active. You mentioned sporting clubs. I mean, they're so important as well. I've been board member of Read the Play in Geelong. You might have heard of Read the Play. That's a youth mental health initiative which...
I don't know how you've got time for everything you do, Keith.
I was. But I'm not on the board now, but I was for 10 years. And that was founded by a guy called Dave Langley, and it was all about working with young people in sporting clubs, particularly footy and netball, but also now moving into cricket and basketball in a big way, and just making them aware of mental health issues and not knowing where to go, if they worry about a friend or themselves, where to go and get help to sort of put the fence at the top of the cliff rather than the elements at the bottom, and that's a really good thing. And so, I used to run by junior footy way back, and you'd see the strength, the importance of the coaches and leaders in the club with the young people, and often people will speak about those people when they're their 21st or wedding or something. It'll be the footy coach or someone talking about them because they've respected them so much and had an impact on their lives. So I think the sporting clubs are really, really important in the development of young people where possible, not for everybody, or being involved in something. It could be a dance school.
I see the same with bosses and trainees and apprenticeships.
Okay.
Really important relationships, because it's about the age that the person's at, being at a young person as well. They're susceptible, they need still more guidance, forming their own, habits and values, opinions and all that sort of stuff. So, any adult who has influence over a young person is extremely important.
They talk about Michael Carr-Gregg, who's a child psychologist and who one of our patrons of Read the Play, talks about the need, the ideal in that young people, particularly teenagers, need they call it the term is charismatic adult other than their parents.
That's right.
And I know that was the case in my teenage years, where there's your parents, you look up to them and they're great, but their parents, they're your parents, and there are certain things they sort of.
Well, it happens in child development. You actually stop listening to your parents.
Well, that's right, exactly. Yes, because there's so much and
you've heard it your whole life so far. So after about the age of 12 or 13,
that's right. If you'd leave home now, and you know everything when you're 12 or 13, but to have a significant other adult, and it could be a sporting coach or a teacher, a really important teacher. Or some sort of youth group leader or something, or someone like that in your life is so important to just help in the broader development of character, I guess.
Yeah.
And
it is character.
And so that's why connecting young people particularly important, and certainly in work context. I used to do all the staff training and staff recruitment and training in our business, and saw some wonderful young people come through. Probably employed about 300 young people over the time in various roles, and some of them, started when they're 14 and still working with us when they're 25. Having gone through school and university, quite a few have gone on to become who have become rocket scientists, literally, and 3 or 4 become doctors or physiotherapists and working in that sort of medical space. And we love that. We see them develop, and often they'll say that the experience they had as giving customer service and working in a team,
absolutely,
and what the work ethics like, and turning up to work and presenting yourself properly and all that, and being happy or doing the right thing customer service wise. That's all great basics for any business or any working in any organisation. That teamwork approach. People can, I guess, young people can develop that in other places. Certainly, apprentices are really important. My dad trained about 29 apprentices over his entire career as a joiner.
Wow!
And we now have an award which is in his name. We do with the Belmont Rotary Club, and it's not for the top apprentice, not for the top one who gets the best marks, and it's for the apprentice who shows the most commitment to their trade.
That's a great one.
Yeah, and maybe had a difficult life story, and there's lots of stories where people have come from difficult family situations and still be able to get
adversity.
to work, been able to have to travel, from Colac to Geelong to every day, being brought up by their grandparents, maybe the parents are on the scene, all sorts of things like that. So they're not the top performing, but they're showing the commitment. And we have nominations from the Gordon TAFE and also from G-Force, who's a group training company, and we have 2 awards each year for those people, and we have probably 3 or 4 nominations, and each one would be worthy. So that we need more apprentices, clearly.
Yes,
so that's one small way of encouraging them. That we find.
Yes, it's really, really important.
You want, I think, in terms of young people, you want someone. I guess ideally, each young person wants someone to be on their side, right?
And
in whatever way that looks, and parents are generally on kids' sides, although sometimes they don't think they are. When they're pushing back against various things they might want to do. So they have someone who knows is on their side and a supporter and a champion of them, really.
Well, quite often the challenge is with the parents, and the child needs to go and get support from somewhere else. And that does happen as well. I just think it's awesome, all the things you're doing, Keith. And I don't know when you must sleep or,
I do. Don't worry about that.
But we just want to thank you so much for coming today and just, sharing everything that you've done and all the things you've learnt and your wisdom and your tips and everything else. Andy, you want to say anything?
Yeah, I do. This has been an amazing conversation, but really what I've got out of it is, and the tone that I've taken from it is that being a business owner, and it's not just about making money. We focus so much on making money as business owners, and a lot of people out there, they're focusing on making money. But as a business owner, you actually take on so much more as a person that's giving back to the community, giving back to your customers, your suppliers, all of those. There's so much giving back, which that's really the other thing that I've seen today and in talking to you is that, having a successful business, that's one thing, but owning that business has really put you in a position to actually be a part of forging the community that you're in. And I love that you've taken that on as a real ownership of your role, that you're talking about putting on the staff, training them, looking after them, mentoring them, but then also going into being the Mayor of Geelong, which we didn't even talk about because that's another leadership role, to forge in your community and give back.
Yeah.
And then also looking after those people that are in need and supplying them with housing to those special needs. It's all about giving back. And that's all I've heard today from you is we give back, we give back, we give back. And I've absolutely loved every minute of listening to what you had to say.
You're very generous, both of you. Thank you for very humbling. I mean, probably just to add to what you're saying there, I think operating in certainly business context and in life generally, operating honestly, ethically, with the good intent, right? That's not mutually exclusive to success in business, right? It actually contributes to that, right? You too often see people pushing, as you were saying, just the pure profit angle or without really seeing the bigger picture, and it generally falls apart in some form.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we want to be happy and we want to live a joyful life, and it's not all about the dollars in the bank. But those things aren't. If you do the right thing, I think in the community, that success sort of comes, if you like, or the appropriate said, without blowing things sort of sky high. You can have good results as well. So it's our philosophy is always that now, certainly business context, our staff, our families and our staff all live and work in the Geelong community, and therefore we should do what we can to contribute to that, and that's sort of where we're coming from. Both my brother and I are quite heavily involved in a number of boards along the years, and we've had the privilege of having the flexibility to do that. Not every business owner takes time out of business day to do those things. So it's not as if it's just we've had the privilege to be able to do that, and we do it because we want to do it, and it's the right thing to do.
Very good.
Thank you, Keith.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.